I'm going to talk about my leadership journey, a little bit of context on a leadership journey. So I think everyone saw yesterday Revenue 10X. We do and run a leadership 10X, which is more around kind of your leadership. So we do it for new hires, onboarding, kind of part of their personal leadership boot camp. They go through it and share their journey. Once a year, Next Jumpers really talk about their kind of 1 year mark and from a leadership perspective. A journey we tested in kind of academy and other places where it's a wider journey. So this is 21 years. You'll hear Charlie and Megan's tomorrow. Or certain components of it. So I'd actually never expected in many ways other organizations adopt it. We've seen organizations adopt workshops, feedback, TPs. Actually, John Wainwright, who's the CEO of NOS Little Rock, one of the first units that kind of started the feedback, actually was at our academy and listened to one of our young engineers give a leadership journey and kind of his 1 year part, and went back and did it with his team. So subsequent to that, I've had the privilege of probably 20 or so Navy leaders, including several in this room, that have given their leadership journey to their teams. I've had the privilege of observing. So in many ways, I'm returning the favor today is to you today. So with that, I got paid a compliment of was I retired from the Navy, of which I said that was a compliment, but no, I've been at Next Jump for 21 years. I was an economist. For several years before that, I joined the Navy. I joined Next Jump. You can see where my head's at. And so I'll just jump in. My clicker's not working. There we go. So a little bit about me. So I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona. And maybe a place to start is so my last name's Kunkel, and kind of my family motto in some ways was Kunkel suck it up. Kunkel's never quit. Kunkel suck it up. That was just my dad grew up in Montana, kind of a small mining town there. The stories I heard from my dad was great grandfather worked till he was 94 years old and dropped dead at work. My grandfather never missed a day of work for being sick. So these are the stories that I grew up with. My mom was one of the first women at UPenn. She was on there. She was their kind of lead editor and has more stories I have time to share in terms of the challenges she went through and the shit she put up with as a woman. And this is our motto. I mean, if you were sick, you got hurt, you got something challenge happened to you. It was we did not spend a lot of time reflecting. I'll put it that way. It was you move on, you pick yourself up and go, and that. It served me well in a lot. You can see my picture there. I was probably looks like I was in first grade. I was probably fifth grade. I like to share when I was in ninth grade. When I went to high school, I was 4'10". I was braces and I had 75 pounds. And I was an athlete. So being that small as an athlete was brought his own challenges. So probably the competitive, never suck it up and never quit served me well. And so my nickname in high school was Underdog, which at first I didn't know if people were just riffing on me and making fun of me, or if it was actually. But I played water polo. I was a swimmer, baseball player growing up, and I became a water polo player in high school. And the coach forced the varsity team to go watch the JV team. And I don't think any of the varsity people loved that when I was in varsity. It's kind of, oh God, you got to sit and watch the JV. And for reasons I'd like to think that my more confident side likes to think they saw a 4'10", 77-year-old pound kid doing pretty well, and they got a kick out of that versus making fun of me. Who knows? But they used to sing the Captain Underdog song every time I came to the game. It was kind of like they would give me ovation every time. They had a joy. So because of that, I became Underdog was one of my nicknames. So let's see. So started Next Jump career. I was 24 years old. I went to high school with Charlie, so that's where I met Charlie. We used to, as I sometimes refer, I grew up in Phoenix. Charlie grew up in Nigeria with Korean parents. We met in boarding school in New Hampshire, where we became best friends. So interesting fun fact on that. One of the things we share about kind of at Next Jump, and you'll see in the panel tomorrow, it's kind of a neat question. Sometimes, what are you most proud of at Next Jump? So I put this up at our last leadership offsite, which I thought I'd share, which is, so for me, I think having a hand in building out some of our initiatives that I've had many that I probably didn't list up that did not work, but from our onboarding, from our 10X side, a lot of the components of building out our culture, have some of my personality in it. The senior team, my closest friends, I'll get into it in a little bit, but we've been through a lot together, a lot of bad times, a lot of hard times, had a lot of truthful conversations. But I've seen with other friends of mine, their personal life from their work life is distinctly different. I feel very lucky on that. And lastly, I think the person I've grown here, which I'll touch on in a second. So what's crippled my effectiveness as a leader? And I'll dive into more on that. Of seeing vulnerability as a weakness, it's the Achilles heel to my Kunkel suck it up. And this willpower versus a system. Charlie referenced yesterday the ones that are really good at version ones and version zeros, and then not all the way to the end. That would be me. So for my journey, I'm not going to go through the details on everything here, but I'm going to start on a more in depth on the beginning part. So in 1998, I joined. I left as an economist. I was at Standard & Poor's, and Charlie said, "Oh, we need someone that knows finance. You know finance." I said, "I know economics. I really don't know anything about finance." And so I came and I read books and I learned accounting. And we built it up. So we went from 4. We ended up with pretty quickly. Charlie raised money from nearly 100 investors. We saw kind of on the culture tour, and we went up to 4 locations, about 150, 175 employees. I ended up running the book side of the business. We started the internet side, and it was a combination. It was exciting. It was a whirlwind. I was really young. We started bringing in senior people, and pretty soon, I think for me, I wrote down here this kind of the gap between the inner voice and outer voice, like really started to really grow. And as the pressure mounted of we raised all this money, now we got to deliver and we go through this. As Charlie referenced kind of yesterday, our financials at some point we were spending way more than we were doing. I was in charge of finance team, and this amount of stress that I bottled up, I felt there's no way as a leader, people are counting on me and the other senior people to lead them through this. I could absolutely share what was actually going on. And when people would kind of look at me and we're supposed to go on, I felt like I had to know all the answers. And that really, it really ate me up. And one of the things in my home life, as the times got worse and we got into the dot-com crash and things started to turn around or started to go down, I basically shut down. And I'd shut down at home. I'd be working late hours. That's how I responded. I'd work harder. I was Jill will now we can laugh about it, but my girlfriend at the time, my now wife, would say literally if you had kept working at Next Jump at that time, we would no longer be together and not have 2 kids, and we'd be divorced. And she's really not wrong. So we can joke about that now, but it was not. I made life very miserable for my family. And when we went down to 4 people, I left. And I went back to business school. I got my MBA at Duke. And the real reason was I was burned out. And I wasn't burned out from the hours. I was burned out upon reflection. I was burned out on this. I was burned out on this gap of this. Now I can reference this LHF of living with not being able to kind of come clean and the way I was, I didn't like who I was. And so I did come back. And then just a series of different highlights of I opened up our London office, I rejoined Strat about a year after I came back, took over as leader of the Boston office. Again, I mentioned some of the different initiatives that we got off. We started teaching Academy and exposing on that, and had the opportunity the last couple of years to lead our kind of business with Tom, my training partner. I get more into it, but along the way, that same theme, as stress got higher, the same pattern for me of not being able to talk about the problems, moving on, having a visceral reaction as things got worse to, if others were trying to bring up the problem, shutting them down, that notion of that two-sided coin of the hated in me, the kind of the victim-y stories that I'd have in my head. And I would bottle them up, but I'd take them out on others. So that's what I wanted to share a little bit in more detail today, because I had some turning points and some learnings on the way. And in the very least, it's my story, and I hope it might help some of you. So For those of you who may be on tilt from the feedback that you got, maybe this will help. I don't know. But in 2016 was actually a turning point year for me. We started to run these kind of our MB21s, our senior leadership team. We ran these owner meetings, and so we'd have to come and present in many ways something that we were responsible for. So in my case here was the onboarding program, and we really changed from a traditional onboarding to what we do now. And there was a tremendous amount of pushback and challenges to the way we were doing that. In many ways, fear to it. But we've made some progress, and this was impacting all the leaders because we were basically taking, instead of going right into your job, you're going through, kind of your version of basic training, your version of training before they went into the job. So managers were kind of waiting for these people to come, and so there was both skepticism and challenges. So I presented to our leadership team, and I got 19 pieces of feedback, all ones. So now we're used to the ones here that just does not meet expectations. And I knew I did not. It wasn't a good presentation. It wasn't a good part. So that part wasn't the part that bothered me. Or as much. No one likes to get this, but as much. But it was the fact that literally all of it, I called out some of these. All like 19 had this common theme in here of deflection, avoiding the issue, avoiding talking about it. And it's one thing when you get it from the full company, because a lot of them aren't, they may feel the ramifications of PLB or onboarding, but they're not in it. They don't know where we want to go. But these are my peers at the senior side that knew what we wanted to accomplish at the onboarding side. And this really hurt. So after my venting, and LBR and kind of with Tom and others, I ended up kind of outlining this part, and it was the first time it really hit home to me. This wasn't coming from Charlie or Megan, my bosses. It wasn't coming from others, but my peers in one conversation, one presentation, pick out that same theme. So the second story was about 6 months later. And so I titled this "My Emotions Don't Drive My Behavior, Do They?" And this one really. It took me a while to process it, but so the background to this is, so Tom and I were at our leadership offsite, and we're doing the what's working, what's not exercise. So everyone's done that exercise now. And so because I'm more the optimistic side, never suck up, talk about problems, I of course was asked to do and lead the what's not working exercise. Tom, who's more on the pessimistic side, was doing the what's working part. So we go through that exercise, and fine. 2 days later, we're after our offsite, and we're in a meeting with Charlie and Megan, and Charlie says to me, Greg, something just NQR was kind of bothering me about that part. And he said, when you were up there doing yours, Tom was like helping you on the sheets. He's getting the sheets down. He's doing little things to help you. You sat the whole time when Tom did it with kind of this like scowl on your face. You didn't observe him. It looked like you were pissed off at Tom. What was going on? And I was like floored because my first reaction, I had to do that. I didn't feel it. I didn't feel anything with Tom. And so he made some assumptions that I was just upset with Tom. I wasn't upset with Tom. But it made me think. And so my probably break in that process about 3 weeks. I was at this kind of conference with Tom, this gratitude conference that we were speaking at, and kind of on the plane back, and it hit me of what had happened. And right before I'd gone and led that exercise, Charlie had talked about his journey. And in his journey, he talks about to the whole leadership staff. So he'd done his version. And in it, he talked about how difficult a time it was in that 2002 time when he had bloody noses for 6 months. And he talked about how much it meant to him for the 4 people that stayed. And I didn't stay. I left. And I think it hit me, and it's interesting. I hadn't processed that forever. When I came back, I never talked about that with Charlie. And in some ways, it didn't even dawn on me that he had said that, and it was nothing about me, but that literally my behavior in that was now taken out, even in a very subtle way, on Tom. And so then I wrote this. I'm not even going to do this full long note to Charlie. And I got out things that I didn't even understand. What I went through back in that time. This is 12 years later. And it was in many ways about even Jill, my wife, what we'd gone through. And so Charlie responded back and forth. And it ended up being, in some ways, held up narratives on that. And so a couple of the things I decided to is, in fact, I wasn't aware after the fact of, I was in my own head. That's what it was. I was in my own head in many ways when Tom was leading. It has nothing to do with Tom. I was just thinking how often do I sit in my own head because I'm stewing on something, and that behavior is manifested in some way I'm taking out on people. And I said at my most stressful times, this is reflecting back, I wasn't authentic with you or anyone. I think I feel that as time has gone on, I've just gotten used to shutting down my feelings and emotions. I love my dad to death. I've never seen my dad cry. I mean, we didn't grow up crying. And so it's not the crying part per se, but I think it really started to hit me that I was kind of proud that I didn't have emotions. Move on. It's tough, resilient. And yet even in the subtlest of ways, let alone the bigger ways, there were some real consequences to that. Interestingly enough, there was a kind of a tweet that was sent around to I think a few of us a few days ago. God, just puts words on. When I noticed a strong emotion come up in a situation like guilt or anger, I asked myself, I wonder what happened in my past to make myself feel this way now. I've learned a lot about the scars I had from when I was young by doing that. So maybe it's not for everyone, it's not in every situation, but it hit to me of it's a shorter encapsulation of what I felt. So I'm going to share two parts. So this is for if you have seen, especially next year, see my leadership journey for this is the only like new part. Because I told my wife that I shared the second parenting story, and she was so pissed I didn't share this one. So I'm sharing this one for the first time. But I do think we talk about here how parenting is a great crucible, as a leadership crucible. So this is my family. So Jill's my wife. We met in college. So Theo's my oldest. They're now 9-11. This is a little younger. Elliott's my youngest. I share this. We're not actually at the stadium, so Jill's not blending into the stadium. It's one of those like green background drops. But my youngest is a very socially charming kid. My oldest is very socially anxious. So we'll talk on that in a second. But so I like this picture because it shows what their personalities are like. And so the first story I'll share is about 5 years ago. Theo's always been anxious. So that's my oldest. He's always been an anxious kid. Which is fine. I've been anxious and know anxious kids. But about 5 years ago, before he went into first grade, so he's pretty young, he started showing OCD tendencies. And in the beginning, my wife was very nervous on it. And I was nervous, but I wouldn't admit I was nervous. But just thinking we could, my classic suck it up. It'll be fine. It'll work itself out. In fact, I was very nervous. We'd move right into trying to solve it too soon in ways that I didn't want. It got worse to the point where for a good month he couldn't walk down the stairs without touching points on the wall. He would wash his hands probably 50 times a day. And to the point that was like beyond just like it was scary. And that process took about 3 to 4 months. And my wife was going nuts. So we talk about the conclusions, the assumptions, and the data points. Jill was doing all of them well. I was not. One of my biggest fears was, and I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not passing judgment on anything. But I for whatever reason, I didn't fully work it out. But my biggest fear was that we were going to go and put him on medication. And I'm like, there's no way I want my 6-year-old on medication. And there were a lot of pieces in there that really challenged me through that process. But I wasn't, for lack of a better word, fighting fair. I wasn't engaging in this. I was ignoring it. I was going to work. Make a long story short, we did go get Theo help. And in fact, we got Theo help in the sense of we went to there's an amazing place, fortunately, in Boston. It's an amazing place. They actually have childhood anxiety disorders, and we got some fortunate. We were in a position with some help. It turned out that 90% of the help was actually for Jill and I on how we're parenting and how we're making the situation worse, of which we can joke at now. But I put my wife through hell. And the outcome ended up being okay. I mean, he's only 11 now, so we'll see if he's fully know for many years from now. But it was a wake up call for me of what I just talked about in work, how it just shows up, in my relationship with my wife, and very important things as it relates to our kids in really hard ways. So. This is a second story, which this is fast forward a couple of years, and I think I've been working on myself after 2016. There was a deliberateness to what I was working on, which I'll share in a second of some of the things I did. But we got back from Labor Day, so it was end of summer vacation. Theo was going in a second grade, and we took the vacation right before Labor Day. So vacation, Labor Day, and then he starts right off Labor Day. And no one really likes after a week vacation, and no one likes even going back to work after time off. I got all this stuff on my mind. And so I'm already stressed. I'm like kind of morning of, and so we're trying to get ready. And it's their first day, so I get it. And so we have a part where they got to get ready by 7:15. We're pretty much out the door. He wasn't putting on his clothes. He wasn't getting ready. And so it starts. If you get your clothes on, do all this stuff. He wasn't going. And so Jill's pulling her hair out. I'm like up to here. But I quickly kind of recognize he's not. I recognize that I can't just like beat him up on this thing. That it's like not working. He's afraid of going to. And so I saw that. So I sat down with him and I said, Theo, I in second grade. I said, when I was in second grade, I was, I just kind of changed classes. I was nervous. And so I get why you're nervous. I was nervous in second grade. Didn't do anything. Then I took a pause and I said, actually, you know what, Theo? Like, I had a really shitty week. I didn't say shitty, but I had a really shitty week at Next Jump the week before I went on vacation. It wasn't quite the 19 thumbs down for my, with that, but it was a rough week. And the vacation could not have come at a better time. And I could not have been, honestly, my honest assessment, I could not have been more not looking forward to going to Next Jump that morning. But my Kunkel suck it up. I don't tell that. I come in with my shiny, happy face and working on it. But I shared that with him. And I said, you know what? I'm not looking for it. I've worked at Next Jump for, at that point, 18 years. And I know the people that I've worked with them for a long time. They're good friends of mine. And so I get it. But this is what I'm going to be doing. And he was shocked. You could see his eyes just lit up. Big eyes of, you don't want to go back to Next Jump today? Because he knows how I feel about it. He's been here many times. He got up, got in his clothes, and we went out the door. And I share that less about Theo, but more about me, of how I lead others. That is something that I would not have done even 2 years earlier. And so to that, I like this quote from Brene Brown of vulnerability sounds like truth and feels like courage. Truth and courage aren't always comfortable, but they're never weaknesses. I've had to work, and I continue to work really hard at this. That part of me still shows up all the time. And so there are parts of when frustrated with others, I'm starting to see as a signal to bring back to my own role in it. And what I mean by that is I can very easily get frustrated in the leadership sense with people on my team similar to Theo, whatever their actions aren't. And it helps to come a lot in the sense of bring that off what I'd like to say to the people. And then I pause, and it helps me recalibrate a little bit of like, what's my role in that? Or in the very least, do I go through something? There are different ways besides yelling at them. Can I approach it? The face of reality, which is sharing the problems I'm seeing, not just the good signals. The challenge on that of facing the reality is I need to LBR this stuff because I don't like to look at the problems as I've touched on. On my mind, too. So we haven't done as much on my mind, or we haven't shared that much, but we have an app where you basically can share with your closest people and some of those things, and list your emotions. It's been really helpful for me. Just admitting I can have negative feelings and coming clean to other people. That's not a bad thing. It's actually pretty normal. Seeing kind of myself that I oscillate between that. And then in team meetings, this is an example of just pausing to ask people what's on their mind first. I have a point of view, but being able to pause on that has been is helped me with my relationships with others, but also pausing before I start to steamroll. So I'm going to end with this. Last time I gave this was I think in the June Academy and or the May Academy, and I got a note. We got a note. Theo shared this. This is from his teacher. He had a fourth grade teacher last year, kind of finished the year. And Theo he struggled last year. Struggled with his anxiety in the beginning, and I was proud to work on. So it's basically General Sherman, the giant sequoia in California, began as a tiny sapling. The mighty Nile is nothing more than a collection of drops that flood of Lake Tana in Ethiopia. You, my good friend, began the year quiet and small, but with each passing day, you become more formidable. You become a prolific writer and determined mathematician. Never quit. You'll become the kindest of all the giants. So as a parent, it was awesome. It was awesome to see that. I was proud of him. I was happy for him. But I shared this in the last academy. I was pretty emotional about it. And then so I reflected why. And I have this up now on my desk. And I think I was more emotional for me than it was for him. What I mean by that is that last one, never ever quit. To me, that is my Kunkel suck it up. That is my part. I think I've really struggled for a long time of this part of the other side of Kunkel's never quit or Kunkel suck it up isn't that you do quit, you do stop. Like what is that? What does it mean to be myself and be a better version? And you will become the kindness of all the giants. And so definitely not a giant. Definitely not a gnat tree. Definitely not the giant sequoia. Maybe I'm slightly bigger than the tiny sapling. But there is something in there for me of this notion. I like this kindness part is that you can never quit. But yet you can also in many ways, be kind to others around you in ways that I think I largely haven't. So anyways, this is my journey. I'm a work in progress. But thank you for listening.